Hello, I'm Harry Cullis. Welcome to another edition of Dialogue Denver DA. With me on the set, obviously, is Denver DA Mitch Morrissey. Mitch, it's always good to see you again.
Good to see you, Harry.
You are going to introduce our guest.
Yes, I've got a good friend of mine here today, Josh Hamfling. Josh is a businessman in town. He's involved in a lot of different business deals, business transactions, but he's taken on a role that's very important to the Denver DA's office. He's the executive director of our board for the Denver Justice Council, which is the nonprofit that we started shortly after I was elected DA to support the DA's office in a lot of the things that we do that are kind of off to the side as far as diversion, prevention, those types of things. And Josh has done a great job in his position there on the council.
Josh, before we began taping, you were telling me about your background. You have a very interesting background philanthropically. Give us a quick thumbnail sketch.
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me be here today. Obviously, I chair the Denver Justice Council, which I'm honored to do for Mitch in the District Attorney's Office. I also founded about the same time, maybe a little longer, the Friends of the Denver Fire Department, which supports the Denver Fire Department, obviously. I'm also sitting on the board of Crime Stoppers, which I recently joined. I'm on the board of the Denver Hospice, the American Transplant Foundation, and I'm sure I'm leaving out a number of, I'm on the development board at National Jewish Health, where I chair the Koonsberg School Committee, or formerly chair the Koonsberg School Committee for, it's a school for chronically ill children.
Excuse me for asking, but how do you make a living?
Well, I run a foundation now based in London that I get a little salary from, but I'm also involved in some business dealings here in Denver as well.
How did you become involved in the philanthropic world?
Well, I've been doing it most of my life, having grown up in Washington, D.C. My parents were in the government, and we were involved in community service there. Then when I moved to Denver at the end of 1992, I was lucky enough to get involved in the Alzheimer's Association, just working on the golf tournament. And Denver's a great philanthropic community, and a lot of our social life here revolves around that.
Mitch, you began to edge on to this. Expand a little bit on the why of the Denver Justice Council.
Well, it really serves two purposes, Harry. When we have things that are important going on in the community, it's important to have people out there that know about what we do. Just last night, I did a presentation to people that had been through the Denver Police Citizens Academy. When we get the opportunity to go out and explain what we do, because a lot of people don't understand that, and that's what this show is about, explaining our different divisions, our different units, the things we try to do. And so we need to continue to get that message out. So Josh came to me and he said, you know, we need this nonprofit to support your office, little projects that you can't pay for in the budget.
Josh came to you originally?
Well, we sat and talked about it, and he thought it was important.
How did you meet him?
Well, I've known him for years. We played tennis together. I knew he was involved in Friends of Denver Fire. I'd been talking to Steve Siegel about, well, what do we have for the DA's office? Actually, my mother-in-law, back in the old days, started the Park People, which is the nonprofit that supports Denver Parks and Rec. And at the time, Joe Chancio was the head of Denver Parks and Rec.
Yes.
And he asked her to start this foundation. And they've supported Parks and Rec for years and helped them redo fountains and that type of thing. I knew our office needed something like that on a much smaller scale. And this is small scale, Harry, but it's extremely important. So what we have is a core board. And then we have a number of people that we've asked from all over the city, all different kinds of jobs, to come and be an advisory board. And we meet with them probably not every other month, but 3 or 4. It's not a demanding thing on these people because they're hardworking. But we tell them what we're doing. So when somebody asks, well, what about this new crime lab that they're trying to get through the bond initiative? Or what about the Denver diversion program? We've got almost ambassadors out there in the community to talk about the good work that we're doing at the DA's office. The other side of it is, of course, if somebody wants to contribute to this nonprofit then supports the things that we can do that otherwise we can't do out of our budget, that type of thing. And we've done some great projects around that. Real small ones, but very important ones.
Small defined financially, like a few $100?
Well, for instance,
or a few thousand?
Let me give you a good example. We had a great example. They were redoing Denver Health, the emergency room. And they wanted to provide a place where rape victims had a private place to sit and get their examination in a comfortable way. They needed furniture. and they needed money. So what we did in the DA's office, we let our employees donate and wear jeans. We called it Jean Day. And they paid $15, $20 to wear jeans that day. We don't let our staff wear jeans.
Okay.
So they paid $20, and this nonprofit matched them dollar for dollar. And we took that money and we contributed then to buying the furniture and making that a comfortable place at Denver Health for victims that have been sexually assaulted to sit and wait to go through the sex examination. Those are the kinds of things that we do with this organization. And they're important things. They're little things sometimes, but they make a big difference to victims of crime.
I believe also in that case, we also provided clothing for the victims after they've been checked out by the hospital, so they have something to wear that was not part of the crime when they leave as well.
Josh, how large is the council, and what now Mitch has mentioned you meet fairly irregularly, but what do first of all, how large is the council?
I think we're about 20 people now.
How do you select members?
You know, in the beginning, it was just a core group of us, myself, Mitch, his wife Maggie, and Steve Siegel from his office, and we sat down and thought of a cross-section of people from different backgrounds, obviously some attorneys, and some people that have been friends of Mitch's throughout his career as a district attorney that showed that they cared about what the DA's office did and could express that in the city. You know, we're interested in people that talk to other people as well. As I mentioned before we started, you know, a lot of what we do is to try and show the good side, if you will, the district attorney's office. The press, most of the time, is people see is that when something bad happens or a murder case. So we try and promote the good things that are happening from the office, the prevention things as well.
Do you have an upper limit of the number, or do you just add kind of as the need, quote unquote, the need arises?
No, I mean, we sort of we wanted somewhere around probably about the 20, 25 range is what we thought, and we had some folks that transitioned off, and now we're adding some people as well.
How do you select members?
You know, we just did the core group. We have a core board that we discuss it, and if people express interest or come to us, we'll just decide. And it really is just about people that will really support the DA's office and have interest in doing that.
What are there any specific prerequisites for a person to join?
No, it's really just somebody who's active in the community and can really, you know, get for the things about prevention and helping crime victims is really our main thing.
Now, as you mentioned, you have been involved philanthropically for your entire life. When you were first approached, what interested you about this particular activity in relation to all the rest of the things that you were doing?
Well, I mean, you know, first of all, I've been a supporter of Mitch's since he first ran for the district attorney's job. And as we were talking about certain needs for the office or, you know, things that he was doing certainly in the DNA field that he's recognized nationally for, I just felt that this was a great vehicle to get that out there. And I was honored to do it. And like Mitch said, it's not a major time commitment in relation to a number of other boards that myself and other people are on, but it does some really important work.
Well, other than meeting irregularly, what do the members do? Or is the meeting itself primary, and the discussion around whatever issues come up, is that their main activity, or do they do other things?
Well, it's up to them. The meetings are main activity. Most recently, we toured the new jail.
Okay.
Which I think was very important because I certainly didn't fully understand how it worked in its operation, and that's been in the press quite a bit. But now we've got 20 people that have seen how the sheriffs operate and how the jail operates. They're now out letting people understand how this works, and I think that's very important. One of our early activities is we had a DNA seminar where Mitch and Greg LeBerge, head of the crime lab, came and presented about DNA. And it was right when DNA and the familiar research that they've been doing was really forefront in the news, and I think that was a great, I don't know, we maybe had 100 plus people there to learn about DNA and what that involves. And we hope to do more things like that as well.
Mitch, how do projects come up that the board may be interested in?
Well, we talk about the different projects that we have going on. Sometimes we have board members bring us suggestions. We have one, Dennis Doherty. Dennis is very active in trying to deal with the meth problems that we have in Denver and to certain communities where there's a higher level of it. So he's always talking about, well, what can we do about that? That's one of his things. So he brings that to our attention. So sometimes it's the citizens out there that say, hey, you know, you need to talk about this, you need to talk about that. Sometimes it's just a matter of timing. You know, it was interesting. We bring 20 people down, we give them lunch, and this is our group, and then we take a tour of the new courthouse. right on the tails of that murder that took place, the death that took place in the jail. And so here we had 20 citizens that we know are going to go out, that are leaders in their different professions. And they're going to see how that jail works, and they're going to see the kinds of things that take place there as far as the holding cells and that type of thing. So when somebody's asking him, well, what about this controversial decision that Mitch had to make on that jail death case? Well, I've been to the jail. I've seen how the sheriffs work. I've seen how professional they are, that type of thing. And those folks are out in the community talking to people. Denver's not that big a town. And it's important to have people out there that understand what we do and why we do what we do.
As far as you know, are there any other DA's offices that have any kind of a similar type of organization?
Not that I know of in the state of Colorado, Harry. DA's offices are different across the country. I was in Virginia not too long ago and met a man who's basically been in the DA's office for 48 years in
For how many?
Virginia. 48 years.
48 years.
And so obviously a place like that, it would be important to have something like this. We have term limits, so one ends and one begins, and but to have a tradition and have an organization like this, I think is extremely important.
And when did this begin?
Well, we started it when I got elected. It took us about a year to get everything incorporated, to get the nonprofit status that we needed. So Josh helped with that. We had a lawyer that helped us without charging anything, pro bono. We got it all together because we needed the nonprofit status.
Okay.
And so it took us a little while to get it organized and have the board and do all of those things. But we got that all accomplished, and we've done some good things.
You've already touched upon a number of the projects that you've worked on. Josh, what are some other of the important projects that you're currently working with or on?
Well, one of the biggest things is the working with juveniles in the diversion program.
Okay.
You have a lot of these young kids who have to pay restitution to the crimes they committed. So one of the things we do is we provide opportunities for them to make money. For instance, when the district attorney's office worked in the MAD walk, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, we paid kids in the diversion program to volunteer at that walk, and that money went towards restitution. We also have these coasters that Mitch has that the kids make, and we buy the coasters from them and then give out to various folks. I think we're going to give you one as well. But
I'll accept it.
and that money goes towards paying restitution for these kids to help them get back on to pay off their crimes and allow these kids to hopefully not commit crimes again.
Let's get a quick look at these.
Harry, what was going on is our arts program in the diversion program was putting together different types of these coasters. And then you can see they're just made out of construction tiles that people would have in their bathrooms. And then they would put they put art on them or something along those lines. So I went to the council and I said, listen, I'd like to give one to everybody that works for me.
Okay.
And so they created two different types. They put our logo on them. When I hire somebody, I give them to them to put on their desks. We made sure everybody in my office, 200 people, got these. And the Justice Council paid the diversion kids to make them. So, it's just those kind of partnerships and small things. I could never take this out of my budget.
Sure.
Taxpayers shouldn't be paying for something like this. So, people that have contributed to this nonprofit then help support us in the office.
You bring up a really interesting question, which I should have gotten to earlier. Where do you get your money to run this foundation or the council?
Well, our original
or the projects.
Yes. Well, our original fundraiser was in conjunction with the Denver Police Foundation, and Christian Anschutz and that group was very helpful. We had a big breakfast that we put together that got us our original funding. Since then, we have different sources of funding that come to the council from various fundraisers or people just making donations. I think it's important that the part of the reason to have a program like this is that we are a registered 501c3.
Okay.
Previous to this, if people wanted
they're
tax exempt,
okay.
Similar with the Friends of Denver Fire Department, if people wanted to make contributions to the offices, they had no way of doing it and getting the tax benefits.
Okay.
The money might go to the city, it might disappear in the general fund. This way we guarantee the money comes for us and 100% of the money goes out into the projects that the district attorney's office and that Mitch wants to do. One fundraiser we're going to be doing next year is I'm going to start what I hope would be an annual event that I call Public Safety Lunch. I think it's important for business leaders and people in the community to understand what's going on public safety-wise. So I'm hoping to have a luncheon where Mitch will speak, the police chief will speak, the fire chief will speak, We might have a presentation on the crime lab in the first one, since that's going to be breaking ground here pretty soon. And we'll divide the proceeds of at lunch equally between the Friends of Denver Fire Department, the Denver Police Foundation, Crime Stoppers, and the Denver Justice Council.
Josh, in general terms, what kind of money are we looking at on an annual basis?
That's a really good question. I'm sort of forget between all the different ones, but I think
Approximately.
probably around $20,000.
Okay, all right.
And a lot of it's not just the money. It's also the group, like I said, being out and advocating on behalf of the district attorney's office. Obviously, if we had more money, we could do more programs, but we think we get a lot done with a relatively little bit amount of money.
How does one bring a project before you to say we'd like to, or does it come entirely from within the council?
Well, I'd say most of it comes from the district attorney's office, from Mitch and from Steve Siegel, because they're on the ground, they know what's going on, they know where their needs are. As Mitch said, it comes from our board as well, and sometimes it comes from the papers, and we just see what's happening out there. But if somebody had an idea and wanted us to help, we'd be more than happy to look at it.
What would be, I assume that the various projects have different price tags attached to them. What would be a low end, what would be a high end?
The Gene Day was an
Okay.
example of what I think is a low end. It was something that, I think it was $500.
Okay.
But when it was $500, then you matched the $500. It was a $1,000, $1,200 gift.
Okay.
And it was important. And it really showed that program that was starting up there, that the DA's office was committed to supporting it. One of the biggest things we've spent money on was actually somebody to help us out in Washington, D.C. Not a lobbyist, but somebody that helped us out there, put together meetings and things that we went out there to tell them about our cold case project with the Denver Police Department. And it resulted in us getting, first of all, a $1.5 million grant from the
Wow.
National Institute of Justice
Okay.
to continue that important work. And then when that money ran out, we went out and got another $350,000 in federal grants from the U.S. Senate as a result of that work. So small projects that make a difference to maybe one victim or to some kids that we're trying to keep out of the criminal justice system, and big projects that have made an important difference in keeping programs that I believe need to be going on in the Denver DA's office working and going on. So
I think that's
those
a
are the
great
big
example.
and little ones.
I mean, what Mitch just said is really a great example of a public-private partnership, or a public nonprofit partnership,
Okay.
where that money to help open the doors in D.C. is not money that Mitch could have allowed out of his budget. It's
Sure.
not money that the city has to spend, but it allowed Mitch to go back to D.C. and take the work he's been doing here and get a significant amount of money back to right back directly to the Denver DA's office that he could not have gotten otherwise. And certainly with the way things are in the world today, it allows him to employ more people and get more projects done that he cannot do with his current budget. And the money from the DJC, Denver Justice Council, allowed him to do that.
What other projects are you currently working on? You've mentioned the juvenile diversion. Now, I says the ARTT, is that something special? What's the ARC program?
That's part of the diversion program. That's
Okay.
where they actually create things. Because, Harry, remember, we're dealing with kids that are 14 years old. They can't get a job. So what can they do? They can make things. They can make something like this.
Okay.
And we can sell it. It's cheap to make this. I mean, it's a piece of paper. It's got a finish on it, and it's a tile.
Yeah.
And then we put on the back, it explains what it's about.
Okay.
And it gets sold for a certain amount.
Okay.
That money goes to victims of crime, and then the kid gets credit for it towards his restitution. So that's what the arts program is about. And the council supported the arts program in a couple of different projects.
How about MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving?
Well, that was a program where the people from the district attorney's office walked in the last MAD walk, and we paid the kids to be involved in that walk. So again, the money went back to pay the
Paid
restitution.
them to do what?
To volunteer at the walk. So they were paid volunteers, if you will.
Which is kind of a contradiction in terms, in a
Well, but
sense.
it allowed them to accomplish the same things. It was part of the time they had to spend in the restitution program, and the diversion program, and it allowed their victims of crime to get paid back.
Okay.
The other thing it did, Harry, is we got these kids all the same shirt, Denver DA shirt, the same emblem on it, same color. We were a team. And the shirts were paid for by the nonprofit. We gave that out to anybody that wanted to do the MAD Walk, anybody that was raising money for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. So The team was raising money. We were in competition actually with one of the local police departments, and in the last 2 years we've won the top law enforcement team award. And we couldn't do that or even look like a team if we didn't all wear the same shirts.
Of course, sure.
And there's about 50 people there. And the nonprofit then bought the shirts, they're nice
Okay.
polo shirts with an emblem on them.
Okay.
And also for the diversion kids that worked, they got a free shirt from the DA's office. And we couldn't do anything like that if it wasn't for the work of Josh and this council.
Senior Resource Day. What is that about?
Well, the Senior Resource Days we do usually in conjunction with City Council. We bring seniors together, and we bring people that provide services for seniors. They basically set up tables, and then we do presentations about things that they can do to avoid being victims of crime and scams. That's our part of it. Usually the big one we used to do with Rick Garcia, we're now doing with Paula Sandoval, who's the new city council for that part of North Denver. We bring different elected officials. There's a panel there. There's usually a musician. And then there's usually some historic presentation about Denver itself. And I can tell you the seniors really look forward to that day. But I couldn't be a partner in putting those together with
Yeah,
City Council if
without
it
that.
wasn't for the money.
And also with seniors, and a lot of seniors, when they're victims of crime, it's very hard for them to navigate the legal
Sure,
system.
sure.
And we also provide assistance to people to help them navigate the legal avenues to go get, be taken care of after they've been a victim.
The Denver Justice Council, a unique, apparently, and very interesting concept from within the parameters of the DA's office. Mitch, thank you very much. Josh, this was really interesting. Thanks for your input.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Very interesting. Please be with us again next month when once again we have a dialogue with the Denver DA.
Denver 8 TV, your city, your source.